Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to another episode of the Tigers Baseball Podcast. I am your host, Chris Schulte, and let's go ahead and jump right into it. This podcast being recorded on Sunday, May 7th. Wow. There was baseball on April 7th, but it wasn't a Sunday. Sunday, May 7th, 2023, and we are so glad that you have chosen to listen to, well, I am so glad that you have chosen to listen to this podcast. I can't say we because I do it all. Anyway, we're not going to go too deeply into that. Let's get into the injury report real quick. Beau Brieske has been limited. He is not on he's been shut down. This, of course, after having a procedure to repair ulnar nerve entrapment. So he's been shut down. Matt Manning, since we last spoke, is now on the 60-day DL, as well as Austin Meadows on the 60-day DL. Kerry Carpenter has a separated AC joint, or has a sprained AC joint, and he is on I believe, the 10-day injured list for that. Kerry Carpenter, to fill his spot, Detroit made a few moves. They called Zach Short up for the doubleheader between Detroit and Baltimore a week ago, and promptly said, you know what, you can stay. He was going to be the 27th man. They said, you can stay, and they optioned Tyler Nevin back down to Toledo. They also called up I don't remember who they called up now to fill Kerry Carpenter's spot. Andy Ibanez got called up to fill Kerry Carpenter's spot on the roster. And, of course, to make room for those call-ups, they went ahead and put Matt Manning on the 60-day DL, which means he won't be back until early June. Also put Austin Meadows on the 60-day DL. He won't be back until early June either. And, look, Austin Meadows, we may not see him again as a Detroit Tiger. I honestly don't think... I think right now big league baseball is just too big for him, and I don't think he's going to finish the year on the Tigers roster. If he does, he's going to finish the year on the injured list, and then they're just going to non-tender him because, look, he just hasn't panned out. And it's not his fault. Mental health is a serious thing, and if you can't sort yourself out, especially in sports, in professional sports, when all the when the big lights in the big city, the big lights are on and everything like that, it's tough. And I mean, I don't speak from personal experience, but with all that being said, he's got a job to do and he's got a contract to honor. And if he can't do that, the Tigers don't have to respect that. They can go ahead and say, you know what, we're done. Nice knowing you. And it would be sad because Austin Meadows is a good player and he's an even better person from everything that I've heard and read. But that's the business side of sports, sadly. So we will see. Hopefully I'm wrong. I'd love to be wrong on this one because, like I said, Austin Meadows seems to be a really good guy, and I would love to see the day that him and Parker Meadows are patrolling the same outfield in Comerica Park. And, one's driving the other one in on the base pad, on the offensive side of the ball, on a regular basis. That would be really, really cool. So, hopefully we see that. If we don't, then again, the business side of sports rears its ugly head, and it is what it is. With all that being said, Detroit had a 5-game winner snapped today in Baltimore, or in St. Louis. I don't know why I've got Baltimore on the brain, but I do. In St. Louis, losing 12-6. This after taking 2 out of 3 from the Cardinals over the weekend, and then sweeping the New York Mets earlier in the week to produce that 5-game winning streak. They've gone 6-4 in their last 10 games. And don't look now, folks, but the Detroit Tigers are in 3rd place in the AL Central. They are a half game behind Cleveland. They are 15-18. The Guardians are 16-18. And, oh, by the way, they play each other this week, starting tomorrow night in Cleveland. Detroit took 2 out of 3 earlier from the Guardians this year in Detroit. I don't know that I necessarily expect the same thing in Cleveland, but it would be nice. And this is a team that took 9 out of 19 from the Guardians last year. The Guardians, it was down to the last game of the season, and it was 9 games apiece. The series was, and the Guardians won that 19th game last year. And what I want to focus on today is the fact that this is an improving Tigers team. And I told you last podcast that this team is better than what people think it is. Now, today's game aside, look, you have these games where you beat yourself. That's exactly what the Tigers did today. 4 errors. You cannot make 4 errors when you're the Tigers and expect to win. We don't have the talent to overcome those kind of mistakes. Most teams don't. I would venture to say that if you win a game and you've made 4 errors in that game, the other team has probably made at least 4 errors as well. Because I don't think any team can overcome 4 errors with the other team playing a clean game and win. I just don't. Detroit made a bid. Jake Rogers hits a grand slam in the top of the 6th inning to put Detroit up 6-3. Sadly, that's the last runs Detroit would score. The bullpen, Mason Englert and Tyler Holden would give up 7 in the bottom of the 6th inning, and then Paul Goldschmidt would hit a 2-run homer in the bottom of the 8th to cap things off for the Cardinals, and that final score of 12-6 is indicative of what happens when the Tigers don't play clean baseball. Because that ball doesn't get under Javi Baez's glove in the bottom of the 6th with Paul Goldschmidt on first. And if that ball doesn't get under Javi Baez's glove, if he plays it and there's either 1 out or 2 out, 1 out and man on second, or 2 outs and the base is empty, it's a whole different inning for Mason Englert. And it's a situation where, Detroit just didn't come back from that, and that inning snowballed and got out of control in a hurry. So, but at the end of the day, this is what improvement looks like, folks. This is what a positive step in a rebuild looks like. All right, through 33 games last year, Detroit was 9-24. Through 33 games in 2021, Detroit was 9-24. They're 15-18 right now. That's a 10-game swing. That's a 12-game swing. That's 6 more wins and 6 less losses. And you know what? It feels pretty good. It feels pretty good to be 3 games under 500 as compared to being 15 games under 500 nearly at the quarter mark of the season. It feels even better to look down and see the Chicago White Sox and the Kansas City Royals, and to look up and see that we are right on the heels of the Cleveland Guardians. Nobody's run away with this division. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the Tigers are going to win the American League Central. I'm not crazy enough for that. I'm not even crazy enough to say that they're going to make the playoffs. But Chicago hasn't shown me anything. Kansas City hasn't shown me anything. Kansas City is 9-26. Minnesota hasn't run away and hid with this division yet. Cleveland hasn't taken control of this division yet, and Detroit's already proven that they can beat Cleveland. Granted, that's in Detroit, and it's a whole different ballgame at Progressive Field. But they've proven that they can beat the Guardians. Now they have to prove that they can beat the Twins, because the Twins have been their problem team for years. Years, Detroit's had issues with Minnesota. Especially in Minnesota. But you know what? At this point, we're not there yet. We got 3 against Cleveland this week. And then we come home. Now, it doesn't get much easier because we got Pittsburgh coming up, and I never thought I'd say that. But Pittsburgh is playing quite well. So at the end of the day, we're 3 games under 500. We're a half game back of second place. Now, I still think this is a 75-win team. But they've had their first 10-game win, their first 10 win April under AJ Hinch, finally in his 3rd year. They've had their earliest winning week under AJ Hinch, that being this last week. They came awfully close last week, the week before this previous week, when they took 2 out of 3 from Milwaukee. If they could have split that series with Baltimore, they would have been 4-3 for the week. They'd have had 2 winning weeks in a row. But we'll take 1 because that's how we do things around here. But it's a different Tigers team. There's a different energy with this team. This team doesn't just roll over and take it like they did last year. This team has more of the energy from 2 years ago where, you know what, we're not expected to beat anybody, but we're going to because we have the ability to do it. You look at who Detroit beat this week: Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, Adam Wainwright. Now, mind you, Max Scherzer was coming off of a 10-game suspension, which means he missed 2 starts. Justin Verlander, that was his first start of the year, and it was a darn good one. 5 innings, 2 runs. And Adam Wainwright, it was his first start of the year as well. But Detroit had to come from behind to win that game. And they did. So at the end of the day, this is a team that doesn't just lay down when they're down. They don't just sit there and go, we're going to just sort of shucks, we're done. This is a team that says, you know what? You might think you've got us knocked down, but we're not done yet. And believe it or not, Javi Baez is one of the people that's leading the way right now. He's gotten hot. He's got his batting average up over 200. And he's playing well. He's actually hitting the ball well. Riley Green is on a hitting streak. I believe he's on an 11-game hitting streak, or had an 11-game hitting streak. He might have gotten it snapped today, but I'm not sure. But this team just has a different feel about it this year. And I like the feeling that I'm getting from this ball club. I like the energy that this team plays with. It really, on a day in and day out basis, it really shows. And it really reflects a lot of what AJ Hinch, I think, is trying to do. So yeah, I'm happy with what this team is doing. Not much more to talk about. I'm going to go ahead and end this. We will have another pod next week. Not sure if it's going to be a Sunday or a Tuesday, but I will have a pod next week. It probably will be Tuesday because next Sunday is Mother's Day, and we will set that one aside. So, with all that being said, if you want to get in touch with the podcast, you can. TigersBaseballPodcast@gmail.com. It's the world's longest email address. I'm proud of that. You can catch us on YouTube at TB Podcast, youtube.com/@TB Podcast. We're on Mastodon. Well, we were on Mastodon. We're not anymore. We're on Twitter at Podcast Tigers. Still looking for a Mastodon home. Accessibility issues with Twitter are causing us to have issues there. So we're trying to find a Mastodon home because we do have access to Mastodon in an accessible format. So with all that, I'm going to say so long. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you next week, and go Tigers.